What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. We're back after a short hiatus, and a lot has happened over the past 2 weeks. CLOL Finals, NACL Finals, the NACL OQ wrapped up as well, and we're here to recap all of that here after, of course, taking a week off post-CLOL LAN. There's a couple of things that resulted in that happening, but we're here nonetheless to talk about everything. My name is Grapes. I'm joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, how are you doing today?
Grapes, I'm doing all right. Yeah, it was a tough week to have to take off. There's a lot of things happening, as you kind of said. It was like the real meat and potatoes of the NACL playoffs, and you know, we could have recapped CLOL and Raleigh and all that, but unfortunately, I got mono, and you went to KryRa.
Yeah.
One of those is a little cooler than the other, and both of them were equally difficult to record as a result of.
Hey, I've been a little sick too, so I'll take one. I'll take it out.
That's
as well.
true.
I'm not
That's
gonna
true.
I'm not gonna put all the blame on you.
The land bug.
There seems
Yeah.
to have been the land bug truly in effect. I feel like we didn't get it the past 2 years, but this time it happened, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've never gotten the land bug. Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like there never really was a land bug.
Yeah, I don't remember one.
The last couple times. Like I don't remember like all the players getting sick or anything either. But I guess Raleigh was just tough timing. But I feel like there's been something going around in like LA too for like the last month. So I feel like it's just kind of been like that kind of time for everyone to get sick, whether we like it or not. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know how the fuck I got mono though. That was terrible. I mean, that was really miserable. Like everybody else just got like a cold. But
yeah, so everybody that was, you know, making out with Hawk and Raleigh, just make sure you get checked out.
Yeah.
You know, so
You know.
it was a good time. We'll talk about it. We'll recap everything a little bit as we kick off the show. But before we do that, make sure you subscribe to the channel here as we, are kind of hitting our off season. But don't worry, we got promotion tournament that we're gonna fully dive into next week. Stay tuned for our part 2s that are going to be coming out. We're going to try to get some interviews. I'm in Korea. There's some people boot camping in Korea over the next couple of days as I wrap up my trip here this week. So we'll see if we can make something happen there, but no promises. And I think that's all the housekeeping we got to do, Hawk. I don't know if you have anything.
I don't know. Join our Discord. There's images of me doing the worm circulating. So if you want those, maybe join the Discord as well. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all the housekeeping. It's going to be kind of like an off week here for us. We're basically going to do like all the recapping everything that happened last week. And then next week, the only thing we have to talk about is promotion tournament. So if you're looking for promotion tournament conversation, stay tuned for next week. That we're going to kind of divide it up that way. Because otherwise, if we did a promotion headline this week, we'd be really bored next week. Speaking of the promotion tournament proper taking place from June 19th through the 22nd, which is Thursday through Sunday of next week. So I guess by the time this video you're watching it, a week from today, is going to be the start of the promotion tournament. It should be a pretty good one. Like I said, we'll talk way more about that kind of next week. That'll be the main focus of our episode, but definitely be sure to stay tuned.
Yeah, no spoilers about our predictions or anything like that, but I actually think it's going to be a very competitive event. I mean, shout out to Cupid.
I think it'll be very competitive as well. I think all 6 teams I would put in a very similar tier.
They all have a shot. Like, there's no team that's like, oh, they're just here to have fun. I feel like the OQ
and there's also no like, wow, how did they finish 9th in the NACL?
Yeah, I think it'll be. There's a lot to dive into. Which is
there's a lot to dive into there.
We're kind of holding off a little bit.
Next week,
so stay tuned for next week, but. Overall, I think we're excited about the prospects of what's going to happen there. And it's not going to necessarily just be that runaway that we were maybe expecting. So with that being said, let's dive into our headlines here for this week. Starting off with that CLOL LAN, we're going to kind of go in chronological order throughout the episode. This is basically our last week episode taking place this week. But Maryville University winning the 2025 Collegiate National Championship, taking a 3-0 victory over Ole Miss. It was a series where there was a lot of like kind of close moments in the games, but overall domination by Maryville as they secure their 3rd title, the most a program has had in the history of Collegiate. Now here's the question, Hawk. I know you've been a bit critical of this term in the past, but with this CLOL title, can we now call Maryville the kings of Collegiate again?
Wait a minute. Well, I'm not the one that's critical. I'm critical of the critics, the people that have been like, "Oh, you can't call them the kings of Collegiate because they haven't won." I've been like, "Shut the fuck up." They've been the best team over the course of that time, whether or not they're winning titles. So no, I mean, we definitely can call them the kings of Collegiate. They've now got 3. They also won CVAL, so they are like very much the kings of just collegiate esports right now in general. I don't know how they're doing in any of the other esports, but at least in the Riot titles, they're the kings. And anyone that thinks that they weren't the kings of Collegiate before, like the gold standard or whatever, I think has ligma. No, I mean, I'm very happy for that. Like, we knew it had to happen at some point. It felt like this is their year, and you know, UG leaving, I think, allowed the door to be opened. Right, we got the Ole Miss 5 games in winners finals. It certainly allowed us to ask questions, and it made the season exciting. But I mean, it really does feel like from start to finish, this was just Maryville's year to reclaim their throne. And I mean, congratulations to them. They absolutely deserve it.
Yeah, it's been a fun year to watch CLOL, obviously, but I think the entire year, the expectation was that Maryville were going to be the runaway favorites by the time we got to the end of it. And that doesn't take away from all the fun moments that we had throughout the season and throughout the regional playoffs, and even throughout the national championship bracket. But, you know, it is always like oh, man, it just kind of ended the way that we were expecting it to. But that's just a credit to how dominant this organization
Would have been nice if it wasn't a very one-sided 3-0 at the least.
Yeah, but if anything, like that 3-0, I think to a lot of us was slightly unexpected. I think a lot of us thought that this would be a bit of a closer series. I think we both had Ole Miss taking a game in our live episode in Raleigh last week. I think Rafa picked Ole Miss. Kind of as a meme, but like, like it was like a definitely not as close as we thought it was going to be, and I think that's credit to Maryville specifically, but also I think we talked about like why this team maybe would struggle a little bit against Ole Miss and why Ole Miss maybe had a chance like they did in the upper finals. Shimmer really stepped up and played incredibly well, and I think he was a big reason as to why the team looked a lot better in the finals than they did in the upper finals.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole team stepped up. Like it felt like everybody was just kind of doing their job. Maryville, I asked the question, how long would it take for them to kind of wake up? Because once they woke up against Ole Miss, they were able to win that series. They were awake from minute 1. And I mean, even though honestly, like all 3 games were kind of dumb in their own right. Like game 1 had the back door, and then games 2 and 3 were like just a little goofy. Like, yeah, I felt like Maryville was definitely the better team kind of from the minute go. But I mean, it was really great to see them win a title, and we had a great time in Raleigh as well. It was, dude, I had missed the East Coast quite a bit. It had been since like July of last year since I had been to the East Coast, like the last time I visited home. So it was nice. It was nice being back. I like North Carolina, so we had some good food. We had some good drinks. We had some very cheap beers, which was just like Boise, except it was not $1.45. It was like $5, which is still not bad.
It was good enough.
Yeah, and we had a very good time.
It was a lot of fun. We had an extra day as well compared to like some of our other experiences at LAN in the past because they gave us like an extra rehearsal day. But in reality, we spent most of it kind of just chilling, which was good. It was great to like kind of
did a decent amount of salty runbacking as well.
Yeah, that was our salty runback day. Actually, no, you're right. But they gave us that day to kind of explore the city a little bit more, hang out with some more people that came in the day before the finals, and yeah, I think overall very positive experience. You got to talk to a lot of the players. Ole Miss kind of came out to hang out after the finals as well, even though they just took a pretty brutal 3-0 loss. So shout out to them for making sure that they enjoy the moment as well. And I think I really enjoyed all of it, even though it's been a pretty massive whirlwind.
I know it really was a whirlwind. I think like it really came and went. And so quickly, I feel like I was so tired for all of it as well. Dude, okay. That hotel had the worst fucking pillows. Like, they were so... They were like... Mine only had like decorative pillows. It didn't have any like real pillows. They were like really fucking wide, and they were like super like round. So I felt like I couldn't.
Was it like your neck was going over, like you're leaning back?
Basically, it was either like I had to sleep like basically like upright like this, or like this. You know what I mean?
I kind of remember.
No, it was horrible. Like I couldn't just like lay down like a normal human being. So I hated those pillows, man. That sucked. So I felt like that definitely did not help my energy levels over the weekend at Raleigh. But
yeah,
the hotel itself was great, and I liked the room. It just the pillows were the fucking worst.
Yeah. Some of the people like just got like these random like suites with like a giant living room like as well. I was not so lucky, but I think Collimer and Cubby
had one.
Yeah. So maybe they just get the extra preferential treatment. I don't know. We'll take it up with them when we renegotiate our contracts for next year.
Dude, Cubby gets put in the fucking suite. We check in at the same time. He gets put in the suite, and I get put in the corner room. Which the corner room was like, it was small, but it was very like, it kind of felt interesting. Like it had levels to it, you know?
Yeah. Well, shout out to the players. Shout out to the entirety of the NC State staff and the people over at GG Tech. They put in a lot of
everybody.
Time and effort throughout that entire weekend. And I know for the NC State guys, they were planning this event out over months. And a lot of the students that were there were just volunteering. And we really appreciate all their efforts to, really cap off the year of Collegiate. And it was a really good time. Hopefully anybody that visited, if you came to say hello or came to hang out with us, like, again, obviously really appreciate you guys coming down and getting a chance to celebrate one of our favorite parts of semi-professional league.
Yeah. I know. It was a great time. CLOL Land's always one of my favorite things of the year. It's like a great getaway to celebrate, like you said, one of our favorite parts of the year, and I mean it's just always an amazing time. But Grapes, that wasn't the only thing that happened. Well, that was kind of what happened that weekend, and then the following week we had some big-time NACL action. It started with it was Dark Zero taking down Conviction in the lower bracket finals, and that was a very competitive series. 5 games. Shout out to Conviction for really showing up. And then Luminosity with, what was it, a 3-0 win over Dark Zero in the NACL Grand Finals. It was definitely not close. I was trying to remember if Dark Zero won a game, but that was upper finals. It was not close at all. Luminosity looking like the team that was promised.
All the way through the upper bracket, and another victory in the NACL. Fake God for Tomio and for Zazel. The core that always shines, that always comes through. They did it again, as LG are your spring split champions here in the NACL with the 3-0 victory over Dark Zero Dragon Steel. Now, obviously, there is still another split to go, but Luminosity, with some of the roster changes that have happened over on Dragon Steel, with Near Airport kind of fizzling out a little bit as well, definitely look like the big favorites and have some players that have had some decent LTA experience with the league now going into its third and final split. Question is, Hawk, if you are one of these 5 players on Luminosity Gaming, are you taking any LTA spot, or are you riding all the way with LG to try to get into the LTA yourself?
It's such an interesting question because, of course, really this question is directed at a certain native mid laner and a team. Be any of them. Right, but there's also a team that is specifically looking for a native mid laner. And man, Insanity had an amazing grand finals. Easily the MVP of that series for me. We spent a lot of time this split talking about Spyrax and Pobelter, and Insanity made Spyrax look pretty silly in the grand finals. I'm not going to lie. Like that was a shellacking from one of the best to ever do it in tier 2.
It's pretty funny I think that Spyrax or Insanity did to Spyrax what Spyrax did to Asila in CLOL finals.
Yeah,
he won the
honestly.
MVP. It shows that there's kind of levels to this stuff. And Insanity, whenever he's here at tier 2, he's absolutely insane.
Dude, like I think we kind of forgot too. Like we're like, Insanity, like he doesn't do too much this split, this and that, but like damn, I mean, he was so on fire in the finals. And I feel like he's the one that this question's kind of directed at, because it's funny, Grapes. I honestly believe that Disguised with Insanity probably defends their spot and plays in the LTA next year. But if I'm Insanity, do I take that offer? I don't know if the answer is yes, because you already have a pretty sweet gig at Luminosity, and I think Luminosity's feeling very good about their promotion chances, especially the longer that they play together. And I mean, I know it was somewhat facetious, but Zeyzal said it best in an interview he had earlier in the season, which was, well, last year we may have been 7th place in the LCS, but that just means we have to be better than the worst team. So we're pretty confident that we can do that again. And like, it's kind of true. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. I don't think I don't know, honestly. I don't think I take it if I'm Insanity, because also, purely speculation, I would imagine he is one of the only players that does not stand to gain very much financially from playing for Disguised.
Yeah, because the Luminosity contracts, I'm assuming, are rather comfortable, or I don't know. I'm sure they're not stipend by the LTA like Disguised are, but I'm sure it's a decent situation nonetheless for any of these players to have taken this offer. I am very torn by this, because our last episode, literally our last headlines, we were talking about how playing for a guest team is not always the best solution, and it's not always going to be the ideal situation for certain players, because of the fact that you immediately have to perform. Otherwise, if you don't develop quick enough, or you're not good enough quickly, like, they're going to have to panic. They're going to have to try to make roster decisions immediately, like pull the plug on somebody like Scary Jerry, for instance. But I think for these players on Luminosity, it's a little bit different, because they're more kind of drawn out, developed products at this point. A lot of them have had years in the LTA, years in Tier 1, years of that level of experience. And so I don't know. Like, I think if you're Insanity, like, you think about it at the very least, but I would want to ride it out probably with these teams. Does it change for you at all if it's a permanent roster spot that opens up? Like if Shopify Rebellion is looking to replace Palafox, for example, or something like that? Or
I take that. I mean, I think anyone takes that though, right? Like,
I don't know.
That's not a hot
that's
take.
the question. I don't know. That's
but yeah, no, I mean, yeah, of course you would take that. I think for anyone other than Disguised, like if you got offered the job, you probably take that. As long as it's like a full-time job, like, if it was like, hey, do you want to come be bench warmer? Maybe not. But if Palafox sucks so badly against Cloud9 then he needs to be replaced next split, I think Insanity absolutely heeds that call.
Does it help that they're doing well right now, or is it just like any of the 7 teams? Like if Dignitas is looking to replace Isles, like if you're Zeyzal, do you take that? Or is it just...
Yeah, I mean, I think 100% yes. Especially because you only need to be top 6 to make the playoffs, and we know Disguise is not going to be one of those teams. So, like, you absolutely take that every time. Because, like you said, like, I think these guys only stand to gain by promoting as a team to actually have the opportunity to play in the LTA. But, like, they don't need to develop themselves or their personal brands anymore. So if you can go play in the LTA right now and be successful, you go do it. Like, that... I think that's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So the only hesitation would be if it's like a DSG.
But I don't think it happens, because I don't think anybody else... I think the only roster change we're going to see for the rest of the LTA year is going to be this whoever plays mid for Disguised. That's my, at least, prediction. Maybe Disguised makes another change or something, but like, I don't think we're going to see any more LTA roster changes for the rest of the year that are very consequential.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I was thinking about this from the perspective of these are 5 LCS ready players. These are 5 Tier 1 ready players that could be ready to slot in, but do they want to try to prioritize promoting together? And I feel like that is going to be the angle for them. They seem pretty driven for
it's
that
the angle.
Specifically. Yeah. So shout out to them. A very dominant performance in the finals. Shout out to Deos for beating Maryville again. this year, even though it's on a different team. And
he kind of is the Maryville killer, though. I didn't even
I
think
know,
about
yeah.
that.
All of a sudden, like you got to like maybe Maryville's got to hire him to make sure that that doesn't happen. We'll see. But yeah, shout out to Luminosity for capping off a fun split of the NACL, all things considered. But let's move on to their opponents for that series, and that was once again Maryville. We're gonna get 2 Maryville headlines, but this time it's from the perspective of Dark Zero Dragonsteel, because a very interesting thing happened in that series against Conviction earlier in the losers finals, with Maryville I think down, or DZ down I think 2-1 in the series. They sub in KryRa over Shimmer, who was a part of their sub roster going into the split, or after the Dark Zero Light acquisition, and he played the remainder of the games in the lower final and all 3 games of the grand final. Now, I think we all knew when UG was gone, there was going to be some big shuffling around in terms of what the DZ roster could look like, and even with LTA spots being available for maybe some of the other players on Dark Zero, like having this light roster as a backup option would definitely have been good. However, we saw it in effect maybe a little bit earlier than expected, with KryRa subbing in midway through the playoffs, showing that Dark Zero was very eager to make that change. Entering Split 2 Hawk, will the starter for DZ be Shimmer, KryRa, or somebody else?
I'm not going to say it's interesting. Funnily enough, I speculated all the way back when UG left, or I think even before UG left, I speculated that KryRa might be the starter immediately then, and it did not happen. And it ended up being Shimmer until the going got rough. Now, I think there's actually much more of a story here that we are going to continue to be following over the course of the remainder of this season than kind of like what we're going to talk about, because I think it's a bit ongoing, where there's 2 stories. One is that Shimmer got benched for KryRa, but then the ongoing story to me is I think we are starting to see, and we are going to continue to see, the clash between the Maryville system and the Dark Zero wants to promote to the LTA system. We've had this conversation before as well, Grapes, about sort of the Shimmer situation, because I think it was in the Salty Runback Discord where you were saying how you didn't like the roster changes happening at the time that they were happening because, ultimately like Spring Split doesn't matter or whatever, right? But of course, Dark Zero, they want to win. And Dark Zero, obviously, even though this doesn't directly apply to promotion tournament, I think that they are going to try to find whatever the best possible outcome is for them to win a championship and potentially promote into the LTA. And if I had to guess, the decision to bench Shimmer against Conviction and then continue on that train for the grand finals did not come necessarily from Clerky or whoever, but it came directly from kind of like Dark Zero management and their desire to get sort of like the best team onto the Rift despite the scrims and everything. And now I know Sajed, for example, voiced that he wasn't the biggest fan of how some of these roster changes have been gone about and like potential 10-man rosters and everything. So anyway, all this is to say, I feel like we're sort of seeing that the start of an ongoing story, which is who does Dark Zero go with to try to promote them to the LTA in the summer
let's
split?
remember as well that like Spyrax is not going to be part of the school for very much longer. Zyko, I think, is I don't think he's doing another CLOL after this as well. So Maryville, a lot of the times when collegiate rosters like go into the summer season, they try to experiment with what's going on for next year as well, whether it's with recruiting or otherwise. And Dark Zero have that extra motivation to do that as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if KryRa is the starter. I wouldn't be surprised if it's somebody else. I wouldn't be surprised if
because also Shimmer posted an LFT, which we're kind of getting into it with the next headline. Anyone can post an LFT, but it did happen.
Yeah. The reason I was talking about how this was a weird roster sub for me for that game 4 was because was if like these guys haven't scrimmed together at all. Like I don't know what's going on in the inner workings of DZ. If they've been scrimming with both Shimmer and KryRa, like I think this makes a lot more sense, and like that is a decision that works out at the end of the day. obviously they win the series, but like they just have never talked about it as being like a real possibility. When we were at LAN, like the Maryville guys never really talked about how, oh yeah, we're scrimming with KryRa, we're scrimming with like a 10-man roster. And so if it was just like a throw in,
exactly.
like, hey, please save us, like kind of situation, and that's not a fair position for KryRa. That's not a fair position for Shimmer. That's not a fair position for anybody else. Again, I'm just speculating. I don't know exactly what the situation was, but if they were scrimming together, I think my opinion does change.
I think it was at the very least discussed in some way because, like, I don't know. KryRa played, in my opinion, he played too well for it to have been like completely out of the blue. I think KryRa actually played very well, especially against Conviction. Those two games were like fantastic. But no, I'm with you. Like, it is interesting because also, here's a question I have, and kind of going on from this is, you know, we have the question of who's going to be the jungler for Dark Zero Dragonsteel, but Grapes, who is going to be the jungler for Maryville University? Clerky has joked that if Shimmer wins him another wins him his CLOL trophy, he'll give him a full ride for all 4 years, no questions asked. I'm generally inclined to believe that, but like, you know, things could always happen. Like, you never really know. And so if Shimmer is, you know, the jungler for Maryville, kind of ride or die for the next few years, or if Maryville finds someone else entirely, does KryRa go to Maryville, and so he just kind of ends up becoming the de facto starter that way? Does Maryville not think KryRa is the guy, but Dark Zero wants him to be the guy? Like, it is just an interesting ongoing little thing that we have here of sort of who is going to kind of carry this torch forward.
And we really like KryRa. We think he's a really good player. I think originally, like,
none of this conversation is to really be a knock against either player's talent, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like
I remember
more
we
of an
drafted
analysis
a headline.
of the situation.
We drafted a headline when UG left to go to TL, like, oh, is Maryville going to be, or is Dark Zero going to be, like, hurt, even though, because we kind of just assumed KryRa was going to be on the roster, but then it ended up being Shimmer. And you wonder if, like, the CLOL season being in effect, like, had anything to do with it, and they wanted just more reps together. But it's very interesting, and I'm curious if KryRa would take up being like a split time position, if he'd rather go somewhere and kind of pursue a full-time opportunity. Like, there's a lot of different things that could happen here, as well as just for Maryville overall, because, you know, they have some pieces that are, you know, not going to be a part of the starting roster for 2026, so they have to start thinking forward as well. It's going to be a different, like, there's a reason that we were sad that, you know, UG wasn't able to join them for this championship run, is because this is the last, like, run that we're going to see with this core of players. And so it's starting to happen a little bit now.
Yeah. And I think something we definitely have to track is sort of, I think Maryville will obviously always be a part of the Dark Zero equation, you know, assuming Dark Zero gets what they want. But how much agency will they have over that situation? Because it definitely does seem matters. We're taking it into their own hands a little bit. KryRa played very well, but it was definitely, I'd be really curious to hear kind of all of the thoughts and opinions on the situation from sort of the inside.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll dive into that a little bit later, as we, you know, continue to hear more information, and of course as those roster news come out. But let's talk about the other team that played in the finals weekend that we haven't talked about yet, and that's Conviction, who have gone on a crazy run of things, including a win over Near Airport, and then a 5-game series against that Dark Zero team. Top 3 for a team that made it through the promotion tournament at Tempest Gaming, and kind of really shocking the world, you know, or shocking NACL fans at the very least, in terms of what they were able to do as a 5-man unit. Now, we have seen some LFT posts from some of those players, as you did mention. Again, anybody can kind of post those things out. But if you are Conviction, and your main goal is to promote into the NACL, do you stick with this roster of 5? Is that enough to get you there, or do you try to upgrade in any way, shape, or form?
Am I answering this question from the perspective of the org or of the players?
You could try from both, but I was mainly thinking from the org side.
Okay. Because it's a little tough, because Conviction really had a great split. I mean, we'll talk about it kind of in our next headline as well, but, like, you know, biggest preseason hits and misses. You and I were not very high on Conviction. You know, we thought they had some good players, but I mean, they had a great split. Hoarder and Manui in their respective first splits at their roles in the NACL, I think were both standout performers, especially towards the back half of the split. And then, I mean, Chrome, Darkwings, they looked like they had not missed a single beat. And Kisno really has leveled up. And now, I know we've sort of had like a lot of talent turnover in the NACL over the last couple of years that have sort of like allowed some of these like low mid-tier players to sort of rise up and now be the top tier in their own right. But I think it still is a lot of credit to give over to the Conviction players for seizing that opportunity and really becoming some of the top talent that we have in tier 2. So, kind of credit to them for that. But I'm just going to be completely frank. Like, I don't know if any of these 5 players are like LTA prospects for me, at least right now. Like I look at guys like Hoarder, Kisno, maybe have the sauce in the future. Like the Darkwings experiment has been going on for a long time. He's playing really good League of Legends.
Really
don't get me wrong.
Really well.
Darkwings is a great player. I'm not trying to and that's why I don't really love like the way I'm answering this question, but it's just true. Like, yeah, if I was the org, like there's probably a better team of 5 players that I could find if I really wanted to go to the LTA. But I think like if your goal is to be good in the NACL and to develop good talent, like this feels like the number 1 roster to do that with, just because of where they started the season and how far they came. I really think this group of 5 grew so much, and they definitely outperformed their expectations by reaching 3rd place. I mean, taking 2 games off of Dark Zero, like that's a huge feat. So I think that deserves a lot of commendation.
I think in our preview episode, we talked about like that big cluster of teams towards the middle, right? And that we thought that overall, like those teams had the ceiling to get to like top 4, maybe top 3 if NA underperforms, but probably not much higher than that. And that's exactly what Conviction did, right? They took down a struggling, underperforming Near Airport. They made it to top 3, but were unable to take down Dark Zero or Luminosity. At least in that best of 5 in the playoffs. So I think overall, like this team, they hit their peak and they did it well, but they're gonna need like more big steps from like Hoarder and Kisno specifically as they continue to grow throughout their careers. If we're gonna want to see this team go further, the reason I think Conviction is gonna be happy with keeping their roster and keeping everything going is, 1, the vibes are very good, obviously, because they're winning a lot more than they probably were expecting. 2 is budget concerns. I think if you're going to make upgrades, like, there's not a lot of places that you can look without, like, significantly paying more than what you are, paying for these players at this current moment. And even if you can find somebody, like, I don't even know who they would be, right? Like, it's not too easy to just, like, find players that would be available at this point.
For Dark Zero has some guys, but no, but again, like, yeah, I was sort of answering it from like the most slimy organizational perspective ever. Like I think like if your goal is to have a good competitive NACL roster that like maybe makes a promotion tournament, probably not, but like maybe, you fucking stick with this team. Now what I will say from the player perspective, I'd really encourage these players to stick together, especially because I don't think either Dark Zero or Luminosity is going to be making roster changes that would like offer these guys a role. I mean, fuck, if Maryville offers Kisno the job, I guess you take it. But like but otherwise, I don't think there's no FlyQuest challengers to get to anymore. You know what I mean? That kind of opportunity doesn't exist. So I'd really like to not see the like off-season carousel take somebody to where they think they could get better or whatever, because that would feel pointless. I feel like for the players, sticking together and continuing to win League of Legends games is absolutely the best thing for them. And so like again, like yeah, anyone can post an LFT post and it ultimately doesn't mean anything, but like I'm really hoping that's all it is, because like I think, just for example, like Chrome was one of the guys that posted LFT. Like I think Chrome just had too good of a split to randomly go to a different team that like I don't know how much better you're going to get,
Yeah, I mean, you gotta just put it out there, and then whatever opportunities like show up, you could consider them, right? But
Of course.
From the perspective of promotion again, Luminosity looks pretty unstoppable. Dark Zero is probably gonna make some changes, like to get even better than they already were. The airport, like, I think they probably underperformed and are gonna look to lock in a little bit more now that promotion really is on the table for Split 2. So that's what the vibes at least seem like from some of the guys on those teams. So, like, yeah, it's going to be hard to power, even though they finished top 3, it's going to be hard to power rank them as projected to make the promotion tournament either way. But
yeah,
do they have a chance? Like, sure, especially if they continue to play the way that they do, or even better.
Yeah, I think I'm about with you. But I'm hoping, from the player perspective, I'm hoping that the players stick together, because I think this team was better than people thought they would be, and I think they will actually continue getting like legitimate looks, specifically talking about guys like Darkwings, Kisno, Chrome, if they play the way that they did. Because I think everybody kind of had their moments, and it's a big deal, I think, that they reach top 3. And I think it's fine to have the expectation that they're just like a playoff team next split again. And that would be a very successful year, in my opinion, for all 5 players and this organization.
Yeah, so we'll see if anything happens, but I think I agree with you. Like, I would love to see this team run it back and try to go for top 3 again, or maybe even better if things really go their way.
Dare I say, I think this is the only like mid-table team in the NACL that I think I'd be like sad to see roster changes for. I think literally any of the other teams I would like not care as much if they make roster changes, but it's purely because I feel like Conviction got so much better over the course of their time together so far that I would be disappointed to see them like blow it up now. You know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah.
But like I think of like every other team, like CCG, Blue Water, et cetera, like the guys that miss playoffs want to make changes, obviously. And I think CCG, like, I don't know, they have a good team, but like I wouldn't be sad if they changed something around.
I think it's just because of the level of success that they had specifically for this split that it looked really good, and hopefully we get to see some more of it. But yeah, I think that kind of does it for this headline. Let's wrap things up with just an overall look at our expectations for the NACL, our hits and misses in terms of our power rankings. Obviously, Conviction was a big one, but what was your biggest like preseason take that you had in our preseason power ranking video that hit? And the biggest one that like really we swung and missed on.
Having double lift rated below like 5 other 80 carries aged pretty well, I'm not gonna lie.
that was pretty good. Yeah.
That one aged pretty well. Spica being the 99 over Pobelter aged a little bit less well. Spica still had a good split, I think. TF Blade was not very good either. I'm just thinking of Near Airport right now. I think the biggest miss that we had was that CCG and Conviction. Now, I think like in general, the idea of like the big soup was still like very, very accurate. And we generally like hit that pretty well. But we had CCG and Conviction at the bottom of the soup, and they finished at the top of it. Which was pretty funny.
Teams a little bit.
And we have Blue Water and Supernova at the top of the soup, and they finished at the bottom. So we flipped their soup. But I don't know. I think we did a pretty good job. Like I think most things went fairly according to plan. I don't know.
I'm doing a quick scan through our power rankings of the players as well right now.
We overrated Rhino and Only 35 really hard. I will say that. That was
Breezy. We underrated Breezy and
We underrated Breezy. We underrated Breezy quite hard.
Chrome we had 8th, which was probably a bit of a miss on our end. Aljun we had tied for 8th as well, and I think he probably performed better than like 5 Mini and Sword, for instance.
I did say that I think Aljun's going to be the worst player in the NACL. That aged pretty poorly.
That was not true. Yeah. I think the biggest misses were like the CCG bot lane, I think, and obviously the Conviction bot lane as well. We underrated those guys. In terms of overrating, probably
I still kind of stand by the Manui rating though. Like that was like a right now rating, and I still kind of stand by that. Like,
at the moment,
because he took some time, you know.
Yeah.
So I stand by that one. I do think Chrome had a really great split, so kind of willing to take the L on. I think what did we give him, like an 85? Could have had it like a 90.
Yeah. He was significantly below like the 93 pack of the top 4 that we had.
I also think
is fair.
I think Levitate had the best split on Blue Otter, and he was like, we rated him below Music and Sammy.
Yeah.
But that's kind of splitting hairs, I think, at that point.
Everyone was really relatively close. Yeah. We had Hoarder tied for 7th, but I think going expectations wise, like that was fair.
I think that was a fair rating. Yeah. Dude, we did underrate Breezy. We underrated Breezy really hard. Like having him below only 35 in Rhino was pretty crazy. That was a pretty big miss on our part.
But I think overall, like we generally had things in a good spot, other than of course flipping like the collegiate team.
We flipped
like
the
soup. Yeah. But we had I'm going through it right now again. We had Conviction as an average rating of 84.2, and we had Supernova as an average rating of 86.2. I think a lot of that was because we had Shogo Rhino very high, where maybe they weren't as dominant as we were expecting them to be. So,
but even then, that's a difference of like what 2 points average rating. Like that's pretty close.
8th and 4th. So I'm gonna give us a slight pass on that one. We understood that there were levels and there were tiers and there was that big group in the middle, and we just kind of picked the wrong team to jump out into that pack.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I don't know. I feel like we should do some sort of rating again for this upcoming season. Maybe we could do a promotion tournament edition of ratings.
Okay. Well, let's come up with something. It could be a little bit different than just the numbers game.
Yeah, I know.
I just something like that.
Oh, okay. Stay tuned for next week.
Yeah. We're gonna cook.
Okay. I mean, that's probably gonna do it for our episode this week. It's a pretty nonchalant episode. Look, we're getting back into the swing of things. I'm still a little bit recovering from being sick. It's 9 a.m. there.
Gotta get the day started. Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, promotion tournament next weekend. That is going to give us something to get really excited about again. I think, as we sort of alluded to, this is going to be a very, very good promotion tournament just because it really feels like 6 teams that are all kind of equally mid, and I say that with love, where it's like, this is a tier 3 tournament right here, baby. You know what I mean? We got six scrappy ass teams that are all going to kind of maybe suck a little bit in the NACL, but like, they will deserve to be there, and that's what matters. And I think it's gonna be quite fun to watch.
I'm very excited for that. Again, we're gonna fully dive into that next week. Maybe do like a part 2 that's fun as well. But with that being said, that's a wrap on kind of split 1, all things considered. Or that's a wrap on like CLOL. A wrap on the NACL first split. Like after promotion tournament, we're really gonna be fully in the off season for a couple of weeks as we go through MSI. So if you guys have any content ideas or suggestions, let us know. We'll try to.
Maybe we could do an MSI episode.
Yeah, like do a little dive into tier 1. I wouldn't be opposed.
Yeah, dude, we could. Like, you got the LPL knowledge. I got LCK knowledge because I'm definitely gonna get hired by them. No, I don't really, but I don't know. I keep up with global leagues. We can cook something. We can do something fun for the people.
Exactly. There's things to do, things to talk about. Obviously, always as we go through league season. So let us know what your ideas are as well. Leave a like, subscribe if you made it all the way through here, and we might be back for a part 2. We will hopefully have some sort of content. We will keep you guys posted on that later in the week.
Yeah. If there's no part 2, we'll see you in the headlines next week again, all about promotion tournament. And make sure you check us out on all of our social media at Salty Runback NA to stay tuned to all the stuff. Thanks to everyone that's been sticking with us throughout the season. Like we've said, it's probably gonna be like a weird couple of weeks. We hit like peak burnout, and now we'll sort of start slowly building up as the season very slowly once again kind of starts to ramp up. But it might be a bit of a lull in between. But for everyone that's been following us throughout the way, we appreciate it a lot. Also, make sure you check us out at Hawkcast at Speedy Grapes. Grapes had a great tweet literally just like 5 minutes before we started recording about certain people playing Shaco, and it made me laugh. So make sure you check him out there. And if you think that Breezy sucks, well, actually don't take what we said with a grain of salt, because we underrated him. So if you think that Breezy's the GOAT, you can take what we said with a grain of salt. I've been Hawk. That's been Graves. Have a good one.